about it time. And this week we are going to whine about spirituality. And I have the lovely Angela Kay with me today. I'm super excited to have this chat. For those who might not know who I am, I'm Tiara, aka T, the wine diva. I have worked 5 years in the wine industry and I have drank a whole lot of wine so that I can be able to tell you what wines are best to fit your palate. I know it's a hard job, but someone's got to do it. I've also been I'm a certified life and business coach. I love helping people, master their emotions, feel good about themselves, find joy in their journey, and really find the success, whatever that looks like to them. And so today I have the lovely Angela Kay. I would love it if you would introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do. And I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine while you're doing that.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Hi. Happy Thirsty Thursday. Thank you, Tiara, for having me on. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Angela Kay. I am a coach, a medium, an intuitive, and a healer. I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I am an international coach. I have clients in 7 different countries. I love helping people work with ancient sacred rhythms and traditions like the moon energy. Specifically, I'm very well known for working with the moon online and really helping people learn to take that moon energy along with other ancient sacred traditions and use it in our modern day life. So that's great that they did it like 300, 400, 500, 600 years ago, but how does it apply to us in 2020, 2021, 2022, and on? That's what I do. I learn how to or I help you learn how to hack your life, hack your business using these rhythms, ancient rhythms.
I love that. I love it. So before we get deep into this spiritual conversation, I first want to say, what's everyone sipping on? Drop it below. And if you know anyone that might be interested in this conversation, talking about spirituality, learning a little bit about some moon magic and all that good stuff. Hi, Kyla. Please mention them in the chat box, bring them into this party because we're going to have a good time. And so I'm drinking some wine, of course, Wine Diva. So I have this Glow Zinfandel, which I thought would be fun to have with you, Angela, because it is actually like a glow in the dark bottle of wine. And I have this witchy cork stopper. And I was like, this is perfect for this chat today. So I'm super, super excited. So let's can you start with talking a little bit about how you got into, your spiritual journey and learning more about your spirituality and what that really means to you?
Yeah, definitely. By the way, I love your wine bottle and I especially love the little top. Yes.
Right?
So I grew up in a family that was really mixed religious traditions, but I grew up with a grandfather who was a minister in the United Methodist Church. So religion, which I think of as different than spirituality, but religion was always really present in my life, right? And there were different times during my childhood that I was like, can girls be ministers? So I had this calling very early on that I wanted to do something with what I now call spirituality. So for me, when I think about spirituality, I think about the big S, and religion is one of the little things kind of in this category. So you can be religious and be spiritual, but you don't have to necessarily identify in a certain religion to be spiritual, right? So I was raised in that tradition until I was 9. At 9 years old, I left the church. And then I really leaned into what my mom taught me about spirituality and feeling into the earth and feeling into the moon and feeling into what that has to offer and energy. And my mom was a Reiki practitioner when I was little. So really learning about energy and all of the things and combining that with what I learned about God or source right through the church. So it's always been a big part of my life. I've always had this kind of calling. When I was 14, the first time I felt like I was going to be a witch, right? I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to call myself. And then I kind of got put back in that box, right? Like, we don't use the W word.
Okay, so I love kind of where this conversation is going because you brought up religion, and I feel like there is such, especially in terms of when I think the same way, spirituality to me is connecting to energy, connecting to source, and religion to me is more of this organized space where, money making situation going on. And, we all have our own relationships with different things going on. But I wanted to kind of like tap into, so for someone who might be like, all right, well, how can I be spiritual? Or is spirituality like, shaming against my religion or what I've learned in the past? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, that's like a huge topic, but like I will talk to it in a way that like is condensed.
Right.
I feel like in our world, and I even did this talking earlier, like I said, spirituality and like religion's smaller and like all the things, but really religion is one path to spirituality. So there's nothing wrong with religion. There's nothing wrong with going to church or having these traditions. All of spirituality has traditions. All of spirituality has some sort of structure. For some people, that might be meditation. For some people, that might be going to church. For some people, that might be praying. For some people, that might be talking to their guides. So it's all kind of within, I view it as all within kind of a container. And spirituality is kind of this big S word that we use for this container. It's a connection to something bigger than ourselves. It's a connection to each other. It's a connection to the earth. It's a connection to all the things. I do agree with you though, T, that there is kind of this connotation that if you're religious, you can't be spiritual. And if you're spiritual, then you're not religious. And it's one of the things that I like to debunk, right? So in my community, I have a paid community where I lead rituals, like I lead moon rituals and I talk about moon, etc. And one person in there is the wife of a preacher, right? Like you don't like these sort of categories that we've created as humans are exactly that. They're categories that we created as humans. And you can choose, people can choose whether they buy into those categories or whether they want something a little more expansive. And it doesn't mean that they're going against God, right? It doesn't, God created, if we follow like the traditional Christian sort of origin story, God created the earth. He created the crystals. He created the plants that make the essential oils. He created the moon and the sun along with the earth.
Yes.
So how can working with the things that God created, if that's your origin story, be wrong?
Ooh, that's good. I love that. That feels really good. So I love, because you can do both. I love that we all can have our own personal, like, individual connection. I love the word connection to source, connection to God. I think it's like one of the things, even though I really did not intend this to be a religion conversation, like one of the things I've always thought was super important is that we all, like, if you go to church or, you read the Bible, if you're, from a Christian faith, you taking the time to do it yourself and not having someone else interpret it for you. And I think the same thing is super important when you are like connecting to your own spirituality, whether you're, using tarot cards or something like that. Like, it's great to have the tool of the book or whatever to kind of guide you a little bit, but it's really important to tap into self, because if you really connected to your own energy, you're connected to God, and God is speaking through you. You don't necessarily need someone else to tell you what it all means and what you're supposed to be doing and what your calling is.
Absolutely. So you touched on a couple of things that I think are really important and worth talking a little more about, right? One of them being that we are source, right? So you talked about like, we don't need someone else to teach us what it says or teach us how to read the cards. And maybe it's helpful when we're first getting started, but it's important to remember that we are source energy. We are God, right? Like that energy flows to us, and everyone is that. You're that, I'm that, everyone's that. Even people who maybe ruffle my feathers are still connected to source. Yeah. And when we can lean into that, when we can lean into literally everyone is connected, we can start to move away from divisiveness. We can start to move away from those lower vibrational sort of emotions, and we can start to lean into the fact that we're literally all one, or oneness consciousness, right? Like all of those things. I also think that it's really important because you a little while ago mentioned the fact that sometimes in religion, like it feels like it's about money, or it feels like it's about this. It doesn't feel like it's actually about like the connection to source or God.
Right.
And that's the same in spirituality. Like that's not just religion. Like anyone can, for lack of better words, bastardize something and use it for their benefit. And so it's so important that yes, we want to learn from other people, and yes, we want to study things, but that we interpret it for ourselves, because that is the true sort of purpose in religion or spirituality, is for you to find purpose, you to find understanding, and you to find your connection.
Yes. Ooh, that feels so good. So you mentioned the word witch a little bit earlier, and I wanted to kind of tap into like the conversation of you reclaiming this word and kind of like debunking some of the myths that come with the word witch, and why some people are like shy away from it versus claiming it.
Yeah, for sure. So I identify as a witch, and to me that word means that I'm female and I am a creator. So not everyone believes that you have to be female to be a witch. For me, it's very much about like my inner feminine creative sort of center, and the fact that in me there's this healer, right? And we all heal in different ways. Maybe you heal by I don't like cooking for your family, right? Like that is a healing way. It's loving. Healing and loving, I feel like, go really hand in hand together. So for me, being a witch is being a female healer who's in touch with herself, in touch with her roots, and is wanting to serve the world, whether it's through herbs or crystals or food or tarot cards or however that is. The word witch it's been sort of, it has a nasty connotation to it. It does.
Yeah.
Like most people kind of like flinch a little when you say you're a witch. And part of that is because we've been taught that it's a bad word. Just like we've been taught that there are 4-letter words that we're not supposed to say, but they're just words. Like it's just a word. The reason that we've been taught that, though, is because when we have systems in power, and there's always systems in power, there's always systems in power in society. When we have systems in power and another system wants to come in, we have to, that system that wants to take root has to delegitimize another system. So healers have always been around. People have like long ago, right? People were working with moon energy. They were working with herbs. They were working with crystals. We didn't have what we now know as Western modern medicine. Like that didn't exist. And so we've always had healers. And as humans, we've always understood our connection to the cosmos and to the earth, to the moon, like in relationship to all the other living things. But when religion started to move in, Catholicism first, right? When that, it's a system of teaching and understanding, but in order to get buy-in, people have to believe in what you're trying to get them to believe in. In order to do that, you have to delegitimize what they already believe in. You have to tell them why that's wrong. And this is where this idea of powerful woman as a witch became this bad thing, because you had to take the power away from someone. You had to take the power away from healers and that natural connection to the earth in order to get people to buy into the fact that they needed to go to the church, and that only the priests actually had the true answers, and that they needed to like read this sacred text in order to really understand. And there was also the element of fear, right? Like you either are doing this and you're going to this one place when you're done here, or you're not doing this and you're going to this other place when you're done here. So that's really where that beginning elements of the ancestral DNA sort of teachings that witch is wrong. Like we started like automatically like, I'm not supposed to.
Yeah. All right.
We can also, we can connect it to the witch trials also.
Oh yeah.
So in us, right? So one of the ways that we as a society have chosen to control certain groups of people and get them to buy into certain systems is by literally criminalizing other behavior that doesn't fit in the system. And this is what the witch trials were, right? It was these women were accused of doing things that didn't fit in the system. And so it was a way to control women. And it wasn't just witches that ended up being burned, drowned, killed, etc. It was women, powerful women in general, right? Like it was a way to shame people, a way to control people, all of the things.
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot. And the history is so rich and full of so many different things that a lot to talk about that we're not going to be able to cover in this one conversation. But I'm super excited to make this like a regular thing to really chit chat about. So you had said that like you didn't necessarily like. I remember when I first met you, you didn't necessarily call yourself a witch at that time. So I want to know a little bit more about how we can reclaim this word and make it something positive and step into like who our true selves are, whether someone wants to identify as a witch or not, like still talking about like claiming whatever it is that you are called to be and being okay with that.
Yeah. So for me, it's about trusting yourself. Like if you feel this like nudge inside of yourself to call you the W word, call yourself the W word. And you get to decide what it means. And then you show up authentically as yourself. If you want to be the witch who wears a pointy hat all the time and black clothes and goth, like show up as that, but also show up as the rest of you, because it's one title. And when people start to understand that you're a person, you're a mom, you're a pet mom, you're a friend, you're a coach, you're all of the things, it starts to normalize the word, whether it's witch or some other word that we're using.
Right.
By using it, we literally start to take some of the charge out. By having conversations, just like some of the other conversations that we're having in society right now. By having conversations, having open dialogue, talking to people, and being a safe place for people to say, but I thought that witches were this, and you don't seem like that. I thought that witches ate children. You don't seem like you eat children. You seem like you like children, right? Like I'm obviously being tongue in cheek, but this is one of the myths out there about witches. And so by simply showing up, using the term, whatever that term is for you, embodying what it means to you, and showing that you're also multidimensional and you're all these other things, you start to make it less scary for people.
Yes. And so as we start to normalize this and use this word, and I feel like the universe is really calling in so much more like spiritual healers and people are awakening now. So can we talk a little bit about, how do we start our spiritual path for someone that is like feeling like it's time to tap into source and energy and learn more about like going back to self?
Yeah. So first of all, you're absolutely right. People are awakening, or I like the term remembering, because it's in our cells, our DNA, on how to exist and coexist and interact in this way. But people, whether you use awakening or remembering, it's happening faster and faster because we as a human consciousness are evolving, right? And so more people are being brought into this sort of way of being. And in my practice, I get a lot of people who are like, I've always been curious about these things, but I have no idea where to start. None. And I always tell them exactly the same thing. 2 places. One, you start with you. Whatever feels good, whatever is pulling you the most, right? So if you're trying to figure out, like, am I supposed to study Reiki or tarot cards or crystals or herbs or your Veda, or like, what am I supposed to, like, how do I connect into this? Yoga, right? As a practice, like, what is that for you? And what is pulling you the most? What is pulling you the most is going to bring you the most joy. It's going to have the most impact, and it's going to show you and reveal the most answers. And spirituality in general it's sort of a journey. It's sort of an adventure you're going on, right? And so going on this journey, going on this adventure is all about how you can take one step, learn one thing next, and choose the thing that's going to be the most fun to you, the most exciting. Right? It might be hard, but something that's fun and exciting, because it's going to make you want to keep going on the journey. It's going to make you not want to like step off and be like, that's a lot of information. I don't think I need to do that right now.
Right. I love it. I love that. Find the joy in the journey, and it makes it so much easier. And I think, so many people want to be at the end of the line, and I know I'm one of those people all the time. But at the end, that's death. So don't rush it. Have joy in the journey. Find what lights you up along the way. So how did you decide that like, moon magic was going to be like, your path?
I trusted, like the moon was the thing that pulled me the most. So for someone who's not spiritual at all, listening to this potentially, right? And they hear me say terms like pulled, They're like, what is, like, does that mean the moon reached out and touched you? Like, what does that mean? And it means that, like, there's this feeling inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to the feeling like when you fall in love and you get butterflies, or when something just brings you so much joy, or if you've had a
Mm-hmm.
child, the first time you look at that child, that is a tug. That is a tug that comes deep from within you, right? And learning about the moon and working with the moon gave me that tug. It excited me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started. And I think this is really important because I think that, especially in our world today, people want to learn about spirituality and they immediately want to be able to teach it and help other people with it.
Right.
And for me, it was a matter of practicing it myself, learning about it, just being okay, being in like a state of curiousness and
Mm-hmm.
learning, and that being the end game for a little while. I was just learning. I was just developing my practice. I was figuring out, what does it feel like when the moon is full? What does that mean for me? Trying on certain things, trying on certain practices and certain rituals. And as I continued to try them on, I was like, whoa, this is powerful.
Yeah.
This can like, whoa, this can shift my, whoa, if I manifest on the new moon or on the full moon, it comes that much faster.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to get rid of something and I do some sort of like write a letter and light it on fire burning ritual on the dark moon or during the waning phase, right? Like, holy smoke, like I feel so much lighter. I feel so much lighter. And it was simply noticing those changes and noticing how when I did certain things and I mean, I've been working the moon for decades. So over the years, right, like learning that I can do this and that, and then very quietly being to my friends, like, have you tried this? Did you know? Did you know? Did you know you could do this? And then seeing other people try it and seeing that it happened for them too, right? Like it was
Right.
I could see it happening in my life. I could see it changing the lives of other people. And then eventually, right, I was like, I can't, like, I got to tell all the people about this. And I'm also a coach, right? I wasn't like, boom, I woke up on Tuesday in like 1998 and I was like, I'm going to be a moon coach. It didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? I was learning about the moon and I was also a coach. And all of a sudden I realized if I can help people understand about the moon in my
Mm-hmm.
coaching, one, it helps me be a little different than all the other coaches. Like people know why they work with me.
Right.
Like, oh, if I want the moon, I work with Angela. If I want to learn about wine or acting or social media, I work with Tiara, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
understand that. But it was also that it was one more tool that I could give to the people. And then
Yeah.
people started eating it up and it just kind of, I mean, like it was kind of its own, it just kind of grew. Like people were just like, I want more moon. Tell me about the moon, right? And now I
Mm-hmm.
have a beta program where I help people learn to like work their business with the moon.
I love that. I love that. And I love like how you said that you practice. Like it's not something that happens overnight, pun intended. like it it comes gradually and you practice and you learn and you grow, which is awesome. And then you know, it's like it sounded like it was like manifesting before your face. Like as you saw, like you believed and then you saw proof and then you told other people and they saw proof and then all of a sudden like you're speaking your truth and the whole everything just kind of like exploded, which is like super super awesome. And I know we have a new moon coming up and like you did say manifesting, so can you speak a little bit about like leveraging this new moon magic?
Absolutely. So the new moon in October happens to be on Friday the 16th. Um, and different moon phases, there's technically 9 that I teach about. Different moon phases have different energies. So when something has a different sort of energy or theme to it, like we work with it in different ways. So the new moon is all about setting goals, setting intentions. I call it planting seeds, thinking like your big project like grew into like this beautiful bush or tree, started as this little seed. So on the new moon, like we plant that seed, right? And maybe there's something called new moon checks where you literally write a check to yourself from the universe. If that's too woo-woo for you, right? Like you can just write a letter. You can just write down what it is that you want, but taking time to just sit with it and just visualize it. Allow yourself to think when that happens, what's it going to look like? What is my life going to be like? What's it going to feel like in my body? Like, am I going to get all the tingles? Like, what is that? Like, right. So like that whole, it's not just about writing something down on a piece of paper. Like it's about leaning into it, being with it. And then understanding that you are doing this, you can do that any day of the month. But when you do it on the
Right.
new moon, that you're pulling down that new moon energy. So maybe you visualize like the moon energy coming down. Maybe you go outside and you just exist. And with the new moon, like there's not a lot of moonlight. There's just
Hmm.
not, because the sun isn't like reflecting off of the moon in the way that it lights up Earth, right? But it's still there. So going outside and just trusting that it's still there. Maybe having a conversation with the moon if that's like your jam. Like if you're someone
Mm.
who likes to like talk things out. And then you can do things like fold it up and put it in the window and let the moonlight kind of infuse into that piece of paper where you wrote your intention. And for myself and what I teach my clients is I have a special little box. It can be a shoebox, it can be anything. But I have a special little place where I put all of those things because they're sacred and we keep sacred things safe.
Hmm. That's so good. So like utilizing the moon. So I'm starting to think about like, depictions of like witches and stuff in like movies, like Practical Magic. I'm also thinking of, oh my gosh, what's that show where the girl goes like back into Scotland? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it, but there's like a series where she walks and she sees this lady dancing naked in the middle of like the full moon. So can you like speak to some of the what people have shown, I guess, in depictions of what like spirituality or witchiness or using the elements looks like, and what is like what's fact and what's fiction?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd like to talk about the fact that everything has some element of truth into it, right? Everything
Mm-hmm.
has some element of truth, but it also could have easily been adapted to fit someone else's agenda or story that they're telling or lesson that they're trying to teach their child that then like their child taught to like 15 other children and like it just carried away.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about, we see and we hear about women dancing wildly naked under the full moon, that is an element of moon bathing. You do not have to be naked to moonbathe. If you want to be
Okay.
naked to moonbathe, I mean, there are
Knock
laws
yourself out.
against being naked in public, but I mean, as long as you're doing it in a safe way, safe for you, safe for other people, it's about literally pulling down that moon energy and kind of charging our bodies. So the moon changes the tides. This is, I mean, that's science. We know that. Like, that doesn't have to be debated. But so when we think about the fact that the moon changes the tides, it's easier for us to understand with the amount of sodium and salt and water in our bodies how the moon probably has an effect on us. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we can allow ourselves to kind of just infuse in the moon. There are pictures of women like flying by the moon, right? And it's probably because women have traditionally, over the ages, right, worked more closely with the moon than men have. Like that was kind
Mm.
of the woman's sort of territory to work with that. Um, I mean, there are tons of, do you want me to talk about other depictions of witches in general? Like,
Go for it. What
okay.
do you feel called to talk about?
So there's also the way that we depict witches in general in our stories, in media, in movies, etc. You can tell kind of the bias in the story. So in our society, witches often have like these long pointy noses, they have a wart, they're usually green, like all, and they usually have a pointy hat, all of those things, right? So you're looking at me, I'm not green, I don't have a wart on my nose. So some of those things are there in a way to help people understand, like, oh, you don't want to be a witch because you don't want to be covered in warts. Oh, you witches are ugly,
Mm.
they're mean, they're scary. This comes from that discussion that we had about the sort of ideas that has been infused around this word. But the pointy hat, witches did sometimes wear pointy hats in history because it is the idea is that it's a cone that connects us to source. So there
Mm.
are elements of truth in all of these depictions also. So it's important when we see a depiction or a story, et cetera, that we're able to sort of pull it apart and figure out where the elements of truth are and where the sort of like silliness, the distruth, right? The myths are at, and
Mm.
really kind of be able to unpack what we're seeing.
Yes. So what are some common myths that have been spread throughout history that we can debunk right now?
Yeah, sure. So witches traditionally don't eat children. I already mentioned that one. That's cannibalism. We're not interested in that. Typically, witches are about healing And healing is about helping. So we can take all of the myths about the fact that witches are scary, that they're evil, that they eat children, that they're man haters. A lot of witches are married to men. They love men, right? Like I love men. Like, so like we can debunk all of that right now. When we really think about what witch really means, we can start to unpack this. There's a large sort of myth in our society and around the world that witch equals devil worship, which Satanism isn't even what society thinks Satanism is, right? And like I understand that from a religious sort of like study standpoint, but being a witch has absolutely zero to do with the devil or Satanism. You can be a Christian and you can be a witch, because a witch is a female healer. Nothing in Christianity says that you can't also be a healer, because that would be like saying no Christians could ever be doctors or nurses. Like that's just silly.
Yeah.
Right? It's just silly. So being a witch is a healer. It's usually also like you're close to the earth. You have sort of a spiritual sort of like sense understanding for you of how you feel like the universe works. But none of that means that you can't have a religion that you also follow. Other myths are that witches all dance naked on the full moon, like we just talked about, and not all witches do. Not all witches work with the moon. Not all witches work with crystals. Like witches are humans. They have their own interests, they have their own passions, etc. And so the way that one person follows might be different than the way another person follows. Right? Somebody might be a kitchen witch, and that just means all of our grandmas were kitchen witches, literally. And I just like, your grandma was a kitchen witch, no matter what she called herself, no matter what she practiced or went to church or didn't go to church or what. Your grandma infused all that food with love. And that, my friend, is infusing an energy into food, and that is magic, and that makes your grandma a witch.
Love that. That's like the intention, which I guess could be the next like conversation that we kind of tap into in terms of like spirituality and manifesting and using magic. Intention is like such a huge like component of it. So can we talk a little bit about what is intention? How do we know that we're setting the right intentions and all of that?
Yeah, for sure. So you know this because you know me. I talk about the fact that intention is the most powerful ingredient in magic or manifesting. Manifesting is a kind of magic, right? But so intention is key in that. Intention is super important in that. And when we say intention, and you had a great question, like how do we know? Like what is an intention? How do we know it's the right intention? So what is it that you're trying to create? Whether you're doing a spell or you're like stirring love into cookies, and then your intention is that you want someone to feel love, or you're taking a detox bath or an unhexing bath, right? In which your intention is to remove energy. What is your goal? And when we look at what our goal of our actions are, then we can set an intention. And intention is simply like a statement of what our goal is, so that then we can kind of reverse engineer our actions to get to that place that we want to go. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So with like this conversation and intention, so I know what tonight is the dark moon, and you're doing a ritual. Can you speak a little bit to that and what's involved with that?
Yeah, definitely. So tonight is the dark moon. The dark moon is the day before the new moon. It is the last day in a lunar cycle. It's when we have the least amount of lunar energy, right? So the new moon, you grow up, you get more energy going up to that full moon, and then it comes down to the tail end at the dark moon. The dark moon tends to be, everything has polarities. So the dark moon can bring out more of your shadow side. And by that, I mean like your scratchier side. The side of you that's like, I have a pet peeve. The side of you that's like, I just want you to be quiet. Like you can eat ice cream for dinner. I don't care. Just leave me alone. Like that side of you. It also can affect, the dark moon can affect people in that it can make you a little more tired, right? The moon's energy literally is like coming to the very tail end. And sometimes we are much more in like a Netflix and chill, heavy on the Netflix, little on the chill sort of mood, right? Just give me a blanket, give me a book to read. Like I don't want to do a lot of the things. But the high side of that right? That's kind of the low side. The high side is that it's this perfect time for us to be introspective, for us to look at like our actions, look at what's been happening around our lives, what needs to change, to take really good care of ourselves. Self-care should not wait for the dark moon, but the dark moon is a perfect time to lean extra hard into taking care of yourself, right? Eating whatever feels good to you. And that can also mean nutritious foods, right? Like feel good can mean ice cream or french fries, but it can also mean it feels really good to nourish my body, right? With like good foods for me. It's a great time to plan out what you need. And it's also a great time to release anything that's not serving you. So we all have things that aren't serving us. As a human being, we're on a journey, right? And on that journey, we're constantly evolving and changing. And some of the things that served us, even if they didn't serve us well or they were a little screwed up, they served us. They had a function. But as we evolve and grow and learn, we don't have to bring those things with us. If we think about romantic relationships, all of us have probably had some sort of like screwed up behavior and relationships, but we learn from that. And what do we do with the screwed up behaviors and habits? We let them go so that we can move forward. And so the dark moon's a perfect time to look at your life in general and ask what things aren't serving me, what relationships aren't serving me, what habits aren't serving me, what sort of self-talk do I have that's no longer serving me? I feel like this is a big one for our society. And being able to make a decision, you're making a decision that had a function in my life. It's not serving me now. It's not serving where I'm headed. And so I'm going to stop. I'm going to let it go. Right. And when we think about the law of the vacuum in the universe, right? So there are universal laws, and one of them is the law of vacuum. And it says that the universe abhors empty space. So if we're going to say, I'm going to stop doing this unhealthy habit, I'm going to stop doing this sabotaging behavior, we need to tell the universe, what are we going to fill it with? What do we want instead? Right? Direct the universe, because the universe is going to fill that space with something. So you direct the universe and you tell the universe, I'm releasing this because I'm ready to call this in. I'm releasing this because I understand this is coming next. And you might do that through lighting stuff on fire. You might, I need to put a look, like, don't light, you're not going to light your house on fire, right? Like, you're not going to light people on fire, but you might write a letter to them, get all your emotions out. You might write a letter to yourself. You might even write a letter to like a bad habit, talking about how you understand this habit has served you in the past, but you don't need it anymore. Thank you for what you've given to me. I'm done. You fold it up and you light it on fire. And literally the fire is transmuting. Fire changes things from a substance to ashes to smoke, right? There's an element of air. Like fire literally physically transforms things. And so we can use it to transform and release and sort of detox. We can also use baths, right? You can salt. We love putting salts in baths when we worked out because it helps pull some of the icky stuff out of our muscles, the acids, et cetera, that we don't need, the amino acids, and it helps to kind of make us feel better. Well, it does the same thing energetically. So if you set your intention and you take a bath on the dark moon, it's going to help you to release, sort of detox the stuff energetically that you don't need anymore. So the dark moon is about resting, taking care of yourself. It's also about releasing, getting rid of things that aren't serving you. And it's all to lead up for the fact that tomorrow, the next day, we're moving on a journey. We're going to take steps in the next part of our journey, right? So the ritual tonight, we'll use a series of herbs. All herbs, all plants have different energetic sort of energy to them. We call them correspondences. So we'll use certain herbs. We're going to write, we're going to do that fire thing that I just talked about. And we're going to really like think about what didn't serve us, right? We're going to charge some water. It's a whole different topic, but we're going to charge some water, put some herbs in it. It is a spell, right? A spell can be like using all the herbs, the papers, all the things together. And we're going to release, we're going to make spaciousness, because tomorrow we are going to do a new moon ritual with Heather Nieves, and we are going to call in all of the things. We are going to tell the universe exactly what we want. We are going to take the next step to get to where we're supposed to be on this human journey that we're on.
I love it. I love it. You're making space and calling in whatever you want to fill that space. I love it. With all of that, and Mercury's in retrograde, how, like, is that completely two different things, or in like two different energies? How do you balance like a Mercury being in retrograde and moon magic, and like, how does that make us feel? What can we do with it? All that good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, hello, cousin Mark is in town. Yes, he is, right? He showed up
And
a
I guess,
couple days ago.
what does it mean for it to be in retrograde for those who might not know?
Yeah. So when a planet, literally, when a planet, all the planets orbit around the sun. And because of that, sometimes each planet is closer to the sun. So each planet's orbit is a different amount of time. Mercury happens to be very close to the sun. So it doesn't take Mercury very long to go around the sun. So Mercury goes around the sun 3 times a year, right?
Mm.
And as he goes around the sun, or the planet goes around the sun, one part of that time, like, he's passing by Earth. And so when he's going around the sun and passing by Earth, and he's the closest to Earth, that is called a retrograde. All of the planets have retrogrades. All of the planets come closer to Earth in their orbit, even if they're far away. Like, it's still the closest that they are, and that's when they're in retrograde. Mm-hmm. Mercury, each planet has energies. Each planet kind of has, like, it's things that it kind of like affects in humans. And Mercury affects travel, communication, and technology. And so we, in recent years, have seen a lot of memes and gifs and all the things, right, about how Mercury retrograde like affects us, and like, Mercury retrograde, and like my life is gonna like fall apart, and my house is gonna catch on fire, and all the things because a planet came closer. Mm-hmm. So all those things aren't gonna happen, but it does affect communication, technology, and travel. Mm-hmm. And so knowing this means that we don't have to be victimized by it, that we can simply be prepared for it. We know that if we're going to travel during Mercury retrograde, we don't do like that 15 minutes to run from one end of the airport to the other, because there's probably going to be a hiccup. Like, there just probably is, because it's Mercury retrograde. If we want to have a serious conversation with a colleague or a boss or a romantic partner or a sibling or whoever that is, we probably choose not to do it during Mercury retrograde, because it's not that communication doesn't work. It's just that it's like kind of wonky. Like, you just don't know exactly what to expect. And sometimes like meanings of things get distorted, and it's just not the clearest time to communicate. And if we are going to communicate, then we make sure that we're taking extra time. We're having extra clarity. We're making sure the person understood us. We're giving grace if the person didn't completely understand us. We, technology, we understand that this is probably not the time to like start a whole new platform, to like learn something new, to like learn a new technological tool, etc. We're not doing things like I am right now, but caught myself, where we have our beverage literally sitting on our laptop that's closed, because technology is like, it can be a little funky. And so we just learn not to take those chances. So if we take Mercury retrograde plus the moon phase, is it the same thing? No. That's like saying that the sun and Earth are the same. They're not. They're just both floating in the atmosphere, right? They're both in the same galaxy. But are they affecting our lives? Yes. And so in that way, they're similar. And so it's about understanding how each of the planets, the moon, stars, asteroids, etc., the energy attached, understanding when it's affecting our lives, and understanding how we can empower ourselves, how we can use it, or how we can be aware of it, right? So the dark moon, I talked about how to use it, but being aware of the dark moon means that if someone like flips their switch, right, and they kind of lose their temper during the dark moon, like, I'm like, oh, it's the dark moon. I'll just give them some space. Because I know that it brings up kind of that scratchy part of human beings. We all have them. Yeah. It is okay. But it gives us context for the behavior. It gives us context for what's happening in our lives. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And I'm saying, like, this is definitely something to like keep in mind for businesses, which I love that you're like merging this with your business coaching, because like, if communication's going on, time to like make a big deal, maybe pulling in new clients, all that kind of stuff, this might be a good time to be planning rather than to be like trying to execute like a launch or something like that. So this is definitely something to definitely really key into and know more about as you plan anything in life, business, whatever.
Yeah, Mercury retrograde is not the time to buy a house. You have to communicate. You have to know the other person's communicating. You have to sign contracts. Contracts are literally written language. Like, this isn't the time to buy a car. This isn't the time, if you own a business, to like launch something huge. Like, this is a time, like you said, first of all, to use the RE words, reflect, review, turn inwards, right? Kind of look at rest. This is a great time in your business to rest, to like just like put out some content, nurture the clients you already have, right? Like this isn't the time to do something new, but you can use it to review things and decide what you are going to launch when it's over.
I love that. I love that. Is there anything else that you want our audience to really learn about, talk about before we hop off?
Yeah. I would love them to understand that if they want to learn more about this, they can work with me. I have a group, right, where you just come in. I do workshops each month on the ritual. I do meditations because meditation is a way, we talked about intention. It's a way to clear our mind so that we can focus on one intention and really tell the universe what we want. I do group coaching in there. That is by far the most affordable way to work with me. So if someone's looking for an affordable way to try it out, like group coaching is a great way to go about that. It's where all of my moon rituals on a regular basis, you get a moon ritual every month in there. So the community is a great place where you can learn more about this. They can follow me on Instagram. I share moon tips there every day. They can follow me on my Facebook, my profile and my page. I'm in the co-op. I do teachings and I teach, I have a show called Everyday Rituals where they can learn about how to take tools and apply them into their everyday life to build that spirituality. And this week, I happen to have a new moon ritual with Heather Nieves. I'm super excited. For anyone who doesn't know Heather, she's an amazing women's empowerment coach. She's also a yoga instructor. And she and I decided to collaborate, and we're doing a new moon movement medicine ritual where you'll get 30 minutes of new moon medicine, setting intentions, me holding space, the magic. You'll get 30 minutes of yoga to really, when we move our bodies, we move energy. And so it's moving energy and helping us to embody our intentions that we're setting. And then 30 minutes of circle, 30 minutes of sitting with other women, allowing Heather and I to hold space for you and you talking about your dreams and what you're envisioning. And if there are challenges and all the things. So it's a beautiful little container, sacred container, right? That where people can also get a taste of what it means to work with the moon.
I love that. Yay! All sorts of fun, exciting things. I can speak from like experience. Angela's community is amazing. There is like just so much information in there and so much to learn and help you grow and help you on your journey and get connected with source and spirit and learning about the moon and leveraging these energies so that we can make our desires come to us faster, so we can release anything that is not serving us. There's so much beauty that goes into this community, and Angela's just like an amazing person to work with. So I highly recommend that you connect with her. She's phenomenal, and check out all the things that she's got going on.
Thank you so much, Tiara. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So thank you all for listening, watching, all of that good stuff. I will definitely drop links in the comments and in the description so you can connect with Angela. You can connect with myself. If you want to sip some Glow Zinfandel and have a glow in the dark bottle, we can talk about that as well and all that good stuff. And I will catch you later. I will probably be doing card pulls tomorrow if that's something that you're interested in. And Angela, where can everyone connect with you, and what do they need to search for to find you?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you. I appreciate you. Definitely everyone should get a bottle of that wine that looks like absolutely magical wine with the label and everything else. Super awesome. Thank you for this opportunity. If people want to follow me, they can look for Angela K Coaching, Angela K Intuitive Coaching on Facebook. My handle on Instagram is called the Intuitive Creatrix. So I'll put that in the conversation box down below. Those are probably the two best places to find me. And then the co-op, where there's a whole bunch of us hanging out, Tiara included, right? Myself, a lot of other people are in the co-op. So that's also a great place to find me, connect. You can message me in any of those places. I'm extremely accessible.
I love it. And the co-op is awesome, so come hang out with us. So thank you so much for watching and listening. We will catch you on the flip side.